Hey kindergartners, Mrs. Brousseau here for Read Aloud. Today we're going to get a little sample from a text set that is called Bringing Color and Texture to Life. And every book in this text set is by an author and illustrator named Lois Ehlert. So Lois Ehlert has written a lot of books, and 5 of those books are in our text set. But I'll just be reading one of them to you as a little sample. So here's one of the books in the text set. It's called Snowballs by Lois Ehlert. We're not going to read that one. And there's another book in the text set that is called Top Cat. Same author and illustrator, of course. So remember, the title of this text set is Bringing Color and Texture to Life. So texture is like what you can see texture, but you can also feel it and touch it. And so think about that when you're looking at these books, why they might be called, or why this set might be called Bringing Color and Texture to Life. You'll notice in Lois's illustrations that there's a lot of color, and the illustrations have a lot of kind of layers on them, so that's the texture piece of it. This one's called Mole's Hill. Mole's Hill. That's not the one that we're going to read. This one is called Market Day. Ooh, look at all that color and texture. Market Day. We're not going to read that one either. Finally, we'll talk about Feathers for Lunch. This is the one that I would like to read to you today. So I chose this book because I liked it the best out of all of the books in the text set. It is about a cat who is kind of out in the yard looking for birds. And as you can imagine, based on what you know about cats and based on the title, Feathers for Lunch, this cat is looking for a bird so that he might be able to eat it for lunch. So I really like this book because it has a lot of different types of birds in it and some rhyming words, and it's just a pretty fun story to listen to. So let's get started. Feathers for Lunch by Lois Ehlert. Here's the title page. Feathers for Lunch, Lois Ehlert. And you see who's peeking out the window. And what does he see? A bird that he would probably like to gobble up. Uh-oh. Doors left open. Just a crack. My cat is out and he won't come back. So Lois put little labels here. This says geranium plant because this type of plant here, those flowers that you see are called geraniums. He's looking for lunch, something new. Jingle, jingle. See the bell? Oh, and I was thinking there was going to be a label and then I couldn't find it, but there it is. Label for the bird. This is an American robin. You probably see a lot of those out around your home. They're very common to see. A spicy treat for today's menu. Let me back it up a little bit. He's looking for lunch, something new. A spicy treat for today's menu. There's a blue jay. Lois labeled that. Pine tree. And she also labeled a sound here. Jingle, jingle. And did you notice this feather? Remember the title of the book, Feathers for Lunch? Oh, another sound. J, J, J. His food in a can is tame and mild. So he's gone out for something wild. So we have a house wren. Jingle, jingle. And let's see, this is an apple tree branch. So it must be springtime, maybe summer for those apple trees, for the apple tree, because apples, the blossoms come first and then the apples grow, and the apples are ready to harvest in the fall. Oh, and I'm going to go back to this previous page because I didn't read all these labels. Of course, we have the jingle jingle, a little feather. And this is forsythia, one of my favorites. And these are called bleeding hearts. This is a bleeding heart plant. I love that one too. Kind of look, the flowers look heart-shaped, and then they have like a little part that comes down that I think reminds people of like a little drop that's coming down. So it looks like a bleeding heart. And this is a northern cardinal. And the northern cardinal is saying, "What, cheer, cheer, cheer?" He's snooping and sneaking. Those birds sure look good. If he could catch one, he'd eat it. He would. So back here, this one is a tap, 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 tap. Can you guess what kind of bird that is? Tap, tap, tapping on the wood. It's a woodpecker. It's a red-headed woodpecker, to be exact. And we have a jingle jingle and a feather falling. And on this page, there's a red-winged blackbird and, ooh, some tulips. Those are called Rembrandt tulips. And jingle jingle. And the red-winged blackbird sounds like this. "Oh, Kaylee, oh, Kaylee." But when his bell jingles, birds call a loud warning. Big cat got out early this morning. So we have a northern oriole, and its sound is whistle, whistle, check, check, check. Whistle, whistle, check, check, check. And there's a lilac bush. I have one of those in my backyard. It smells so good. And look, a falling feather. And what do you think that says? Jingle, jingle. So the words on these pages told us the reason, if you hadn't already figured it out, the reason this cat is not having any luck catching a bird for lunch is because it has that jingling bell around its neck. So the birds hear it coming. Ooh, these are mourning doves. I have some of these that live close to my house too. So I definitely know the sound they make. I hear them all the time. And they say, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." And there are two that are a pair that stay together. Ooh, 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 ooh. And you guessed it, a falling feather and jingle, jingle. But cats can't fly and they can't soar. There's a northern flicker and a jingle, jingle and falling feather. And birds know what their wings are for. So cats can't fly and they can't soar, and birds know what their wings are for. So that's a way of saying the birds can fly and they can soar. Jingle, 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 jingle. There's a lot of jingling on this page. We have a ruby-throated hummingbird here, and we have a petunia plant. I really like how Lois labeled everything in this book so that I would know the names of all the birds and all the plants. So he keeps prowling, hoping to munch. But all he catches are feathers for lunch. I'm going to back up to the page before so that I can read the labels to you. We have a house sparrow, and we have an American goldfinch. And the house sparrow says cheep cheep, and the American goldfinch says sawee sawee. And there's some more forsythia. We saw that earlier, forsythia branches. And look, a falling feather and jingle jingle. So at the end of this book, it says the lunch that got away. And Lois gives a little bit of information about each of these birds that we saw in the book. She tells the size of the bird and the food they like to eat and what their home is like and what area they live in. So let's see, I'll pick one of those to read to you. Let's see. How about the American goldfinch? I really like that one because it's yellow. So the American goldfinch's size is 4.5 to 5.5 inches. So pretty small. Maybe like about this big? Maybe a little bigger. About that big. Pretty small. And the food, it eats thistle seeds, insects, and small fruit. Its home, it likes to live near thistle patches. Well, that makes sense since it eats thistle seeds. It lives by roadsides and also in open woods and orchards and gardens and parks. And the area that it lives in, it lives all throughout the United States and also in southern Canada. So the United States is, of course, where we live, and Canada is just to the north of us, or if you're looking at a map, it's right above us. And so the American goldfinch lives in the lowest part of Canada that's closest to where we live in the United States. Okay. Well, I really, really liked that book, and I hope you noticed the texture and the color that Lois Ehlert uses to make her illustrations. They remind me a lot of when we talked about Eric Carle's illustrations and how it looks like Eric Carle paints papers and then lets it dry and cuts them out in order to build the illustrations out of those little cut pieces of paper. And it looks like that's what Lois does too. See how it looks like she's cut out this head of the cat and then cut out the collar and the tag and the bell and the cat's body from a piece of paper, and she layers all of those together to build her illustrations. So those are really interesting, and they just are, there's a lot of different texture and color in them. So I will have an activity for you to do based on this book. So if you go on over to your Write About Reading activity on Seesaw, you will see what I'm going to ask you to do. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.